to a project that an Asian hero would work as a marquee draw.
They think that business-wise it's a risk. And I don't blame them. In the same way, it's like in Hong Kong, if a foreigner come and became a star, if I were the man with the money, I probably would have my own worry of whether or not the acceptance would be there. But that's all right, because if you honestly express yourself, it doesn't matter.
Bruce Lee, before he left for Hong Kong, was working with Warner Brothers, with Fred Weintraub, in developing a concept for a television show set in the Old West, and it was going to be called The Warrior at that point. It was later changed to Kung Fu. They never apparently considered him at all for the lead because, in their words, he was too Chinese-looking. And what happened was they ended up giving the role to a Caucasian actor, David Carradine, who they tried to make up to look half Chinese.
Bitter at what he considered Hollywood's racism, Bruce now turned all of his attentions to his partnership with Raymond Chow. Having developed a keen interest in filmmaking while starring in The Green Hornet, Lee now oversaw all aspects of his new film, Way of the Dragon.
It's Lee, Unleashed.
He wrote it, he choreographed it, he starred in it. He played percussion and the music for the film. He had about 8 hats on, and it was his first ever directorial debut.
Lee, Unmarshaled.
Bruce was given the creative control he desired and made sure that his performance and the film would live up to his audience's growing expectations. One of the film's highlights was this grueling fight scene between Lee and his former student, Chuck Norris.
At the beginning of that fight scene, Bruce Lee's character was losing because he's in a very rigid martial arts way. Chuck Norris's character is also rigid, and he's a more powerful, bigger individual. Bruce at that point changes tactics and starts bouncing around like Muhammad Ali or Sugar Ray Robinson and being non-telegraphic. As a result, Bruce Lee emerges victorious. Bruce stressed the need to show the ability to adapt instantly to whatever the situation was in front of you.
Way of the Dragon smashed all previous box office records, and within weeks of its release, Bruce was busy prepping fight scenes for his next film, Game of Death. Co-starring would be his friend and former pupil, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
I was flabbergasted, this is something that we had dreamed about, but, we'd never really gotten a green light from anybody. It was a great experience.
But before Game of Death was completed, Bruce finally got the call from Hollywood he had waited for all his life. He was offered his first starring role in an American film, Enter the Dragon. It would be a big-budget martial arts blockbuster and a validation of Bruce's years of dedication to his art. Now, more than ever, Bruce Lee was considered the #1 martial arts practitioner in the world, on and off the set.
Some kid was sitting on a wall questioning whether he was just an actor, or could he really do any of the things that he had been doing. And Bruce walked close to him, and then it was just snap, and he hit him, and the kid had a bloody nose and raised his hands, and that was it.
To their eyes, he was like Billy the Kid. People would try and take pokes at him when he was walking down the street. But Bruce would just, use all the savvy that he developed and just play with these guys, and in fact would make a move on them and then correct their forms.
Though Bruce was physically fit and at the top of his game, something was seriously wrong.
He was training for something that would never come, a fight that would never happen. Bruce seemed to be on a 7-day-a-week schedule.
He was just working hard, and he knew it, but with the success of Enter the Dragon, he would have achieved that place where he could pick and choose a little bit, take his time to find the right properties and develop them. So he was on the cusp of realizing his dreams.
On May 10th, 1973, while editing Enter the Dragon in a Hong Kong studio, Bruce Lee became dizzy and collapsed. Rushed to the hospital, the actor appeared very close to death, although doctors couldn't determine the cause. Undergoing a battery of tests, he recovered sufficiently to return to work, and after completing Enter the Dragon, resumed work on the unfinished Game of Death.
He was working with a Chinese actress who he thought might be involved in the film as well. So he was at her house, and he complained that he had a headache. And she gave him a prescription tablet that she had called Equagesic. And he went into another room and lay down.
But when she couldn't wake him a few hours later, actress Betty Ting Pei called Raymond Chow.
The phone rang and they said, "I don't know what happens, but I couldn't wake up Bruce. So why don't you come?" So in a hurry, I went to Betty's place, and Bruce looked very pale.
Raymond Chow called me and told me I should go to the hospital. And so I took a taxi to the hospital, and I just remember that I couldn't ask if he had died, and I said, "Is he alive?" And they said, "No."
On July 20th, 1973, at the age of 32, Bruce Lee, martial arts master, was dead.
We were shocked. I definitely was shocked. My mom was, of course, she was torn apart really bad. Because she was so proud of Bruce.
And here was a man in the peak of health, and one day he just expired. No car accident, no external source, no great illness. And so people needed to find a reason.
But as news spread throughout the world, so did rumors that his death was no accident. Had he been murdered, some wondered? The target of retaliation by angry Hong Kong gangs? Some even speculated that Lee had been killed by a curse imposed by Asian martial arts masters, still angry that he had revealed their secrets to non-Asians.
As far as rumors of a curse or rumors of this and that, there's just no bearing. I mean, I suppose when someone passes away, you can say whatever you want. You could say he was done in by gremlins, but there's equal evidence for gremlins as there is for a curse.
An autopsy revealed the cause of Lee's death to be cerebral edema, or swelling of the brain, an allergic reaction to the pill he had taken to alleviate his headache.
The scientific medical evidence was extremely clear. So you may call it a freak accident, but absolutely nothing else.
Within days, more than 20,000 mourners crowded the streets of Hong Kong to pay their respects to the fallen superstar. Following a memorial service, his body was taken to Seattle, where Bruce and his wife had met and fallen in love. Among those at the funeral were close friends James Coburn and Steve McQueen, who served as pallbearers. At the age of only 32, Bruce Lee had left behind a wife, 2 children, and an unrivaled legacy in the world of entertainment and martial arts. But ironically, it would be the films in which he didn't appear where his legend would live on. In a desperate effort to salvage Bruce Lee's last film, the producers hired a look-alike actor and resorted to obvious and at times laughable camera tricks.
Cut! Okay, that's a print. That was great, Billy. Okay, everybody, get what are they?
But mixed results couldn't prevent Game of Death from being an enormous financial success. On the strength of 5 films, Bruce Lee had forever redefined the action movie genre and opened the doors for martial arts superstars like Jackie Chan, Chuck Norris, Steven Seagal, and Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Just about everybody now who does action resorts to some form of karate or kickboxing or something like that.
But of all the actors who dared fill the fallen star's footprints, the one with the greatest chance seemed to be Bruce's only son, Brandon.
A weird question to me when people ask me about, following in my father's footsteps. Because if by that you mean doing really excellent films and doing the kind of work that my father did, doing that quality of work, that level of work, absolutely, absolutely that's what I want to do. But if you mean trying to imitate him in some way, trying to be a